Greetings, everyone. Here are the main points in the video. The Kursk disaster, Russia's impenetrable shield, was destroyed in the blink of an eye. Right at the most heavily guarded airbase, the MiG-29 fighter jet and the $1 million Pantsir-S1 air defense system were completely destroyed. I will explain why. The wave of attacks on Koymer and Saki airfield, the painful loss of the Su-24M strike aircraft, and the appearance of a new space killer called the Hornet. The large-scale encirclement operation, the elimination of the coastal Busan-S radar at Kursk, and the series of ammunition explosions in Luhansk, Donetsk, and Zaporizhia have torn apart the rear lines. Explaining the shocking numbers, why 50 of Russia's total Panzer complexes were destroyed and 174 air defense systems vanished in just 5 months, costing more than $5.4 billion USD from the budget. Real-time tech and satellite data enabled Ukraine to achieve 1 million UAV strikes, with a goal of reaching 2 million even more powerful attacks. The secret of barriers and stakes, what new tactics are quietly reshaping the entire front line of the battlefield? Welcome to the analysis program of Luanban Shinsu. Before we begin, please like the video and subscribe to the channel so we can continue. Thank you, dear audience. Confidently shocked when 45 million USD went up in flames in Kursk, the MiG-29 fighter jet and the Pantsir-S1 both went down at the same time. Ladies and gentlemen, at an airbase in the Kursk region, the Russian Federation has just experienced a devastating blow. Right on its own territory, Russia tried to hide one of its valuable fighter jets behind the country's top air defense shield, only to witness both being neatly destroyed by Ukrainian forces. Each target fell one after another, a weapon once advertised as invulnerable now burned to ashes, exposing a harsh reality. Losing the bridge, they made the same deadly mistake again in just one drone strike. It's not just simple embarrassment, but it's gradually becoming a familiar nightmare for the Russian military at this stage. The center of this military disaster is Kalido Airport, located just about 7 kilometers east of the center of Kursk city. In Kursk, which marked Russia's most humiliating moment since the beginning of the war, Ukraine unexpectedly launched a large-scale counteroffensive in August 2024. They captured hundreds of kilometers of Russian territory, and although that border incursion was eventually pushed back, it still turned the border province of Kursk into one of the most vulnerable Achilles' heels on the entire map of the Russian Federation. Now, the still unhealed wound at the hotspot of Kursk has been aggravated once again. Since launching the campaign, Russia has turned Kalido into a dual-use airport, combining the civilian airport of Kursk-Vostochi with a closely guarded military base serving as a springboard for airstrike operations. Protected by the most advanced air defense shields that Moscow possesses, this base is home to a fleet of fighter jets and bombers, machines that continuously rain down missiles and glide bombs, devastating Ukrainian territory. Fully aware of this deadly threat, Ukraine was forced to come up with a response. On July 21, a brutal reality hit Ukraine's 15th Independent Artillery Reconnaissance Brigade. The force, known for its menacing reputation, carried out a precise and deadly UAV raid, taking 2 of Russia's valuable strategic assets out of action. The first loss was a MiG-29 fighter jet brought down in a series of thunderous explosions, a painful blow that would make any military commander wince. But the tragedy didn't stop there. Even more bitter, Ukrainian drones also wiped out the Pantsir-S1 air defense system, which had been assigned the mission of protecting that very fighter jet. In just a single swift strike, Ukraine destroyed 2 high-value targets at once, causing Russia to lose both a real fighter jet and the short-range air defense system that was supposed to protect Kalido Airbase from exactly the kind of UAV threat the enemy had just sent. Let's pause for a moment to reflect on the bitter irony of this situation. The very nature and sole purpose of an air defense system is to intercept and destroy flying threats like missiles or UAVs. Russia deployed the Pantsir-S1 in Kalido with absolute confidence in that capability. But in the end, the very shield meant to protect was taken out by the very weapon it was supposed to stop, paving the way for the next strike to neatly destroy the MiG-29. The General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces officially announced this battle on the social network Telegram, along with a stark warning that things are not over yet. Accompanying the announcement was a video about 50 seconds long, capturing the details of the attack so clearly that the Russian side could not deny it or use their usual excuse that it was just debris from a downed UAV falling down. The first seconds of the footage reveal the entire process of meticulous reconnaissance and careful planning, from identifying the base, pinpointing the exact location of the MiG-29 and the Pantsir-S1 system, to the scene of the fighter jet bursting into flames. A clearer proof of a successful bombing strike could not be found. The footage from the perspective of the Ukrainian UAV itself shows the Pantsir-S1 system clearly in its sights. Normally, a top-tier air defense system like that should be rotating its turret, firing continuously, or launching missiles to intercept the threat. But no, the Ukrainian UAV just keeps moving in, while Russia's million-dollar shield is completely blind and motionless. The footage cuts off right before the deadly impact, sending a brutally clear message. The Pantsir-S1 is not only powerless to protect the MiG-29 fighter jet, but it also meets its own end without being able to mount even the slightest defense. Whether it's a real combat system or just a decoy model, does that even matter anymore? The harsh reality is that Ukraine has just dealt a painful blow to a heavily guarded airbase in Kursk, while Russia was completely powerless. The pain of this loss is even greater when looking at the staggering financial figures. A MiG-29 fighter jet from the Soviet era is worth about $25 million US, while a Pantsir-S1 system costs around $20 million. Thus, after just one perfectly coordinated bombing strike by UAVs, Russia suffered a direct loss of up to $45 million US. In contrast, the cost of the kamikaze UAVs used by Ukraine is extremely small. Estimated in the low hundreds of thousands of dollars, the return on this wartime investment is highly effective. The loss of the Pantsir-S1 has made the Kalino base more exposed and vulnerable than ever to subsequent attacks. Meanwhile, the absence of the MiG-29 directly reduces Russia's ability to drop glide bombs and missiles on Ukrainian territory. When pressure from the air is eased, Ukrainian forces will have more tactical space to focus on crushing the enemy on the ground. Clearly, July 21 was not a pleasant day for the Russian military. While the fire at Kalino airfield had not even been put out yet, a series of coordinated drone strikes simultaneously tore through the night sky on multiple fronts, from deep inside Russian territory to the occupied regions. According to aggregated data from international media such as Euromaidan Press, in the town of Holy, in the Kherson region controlled by Russia, Ukraine completely destroyed an extremely expensive Pantsir-S maritime surveillance radar station. Unlike conventional air defense radar stations, the Pantsir-S serves as a coastal eye, deployed by the Russian military to search for and monitor targets moving over the Black Sea and the strategic Dnipro River. The disabling of this eye has torn a hole in Russia's coastal surveillance network, opening a safe corridor for Ukraine's unmanned suicide boats to freely infiltrate and threaten rear bases in Zamir, as well as coastal outposts. At the same time, along the hundreds of kilometers of front lines, the wave of attacks continued to spread with ruthless precision. In Luhansk province, a large Russian ammunition depot near the Kondryach area was blown up. Meanwhile, in Donetsk province, the strategic logistics station near Davidevsky caught fire. The Zaporizhzhia front was not out of range, as two important Russian command posts in Kamyansky and Kuma were successively leveled. Even in Kut province itself, the attacks did not stop at Kalino airport, as a military supply warehouse in Popovolezichi was also hit by enemy UAVs. That night was truly an aerial nightmare, exposing the alarmingly helpless state of the Russian air defense system. The downing of the MiG-29 fighter jet along with the Pantsir-S1 air defense system was the most spectacular media highlight, but it was only a part of the bigger picture of a large-scale coordinated campaign. Looking at the bigger picture, striking Russian air bases seems to have become a carefully calculated operational strategy by Kiev. Just a few days before the Kalino incident, Ukrainian forces also announced another precision strike campaign targeting Saki airfield on the Guamir Peninsula, a target that had already been attacked multiple times before. In this strike, the Ukrainian military deployed an upgraded version of the Hornet UAV, a machine that is playing a key role in the blockade campaign aimed at completely cutting off and isolating the Guamir Peninsula. The operation in Saki destroyed a Su-24M attack aircraft, forcing the Russian Air Force to bitterly accept the loss of two valuable combat aircraft in just one short week. Will this upgraded version of the Hornet continue to be used in the strike on Kursk? The Ukrainian side remained silent, and in fact, they didn't need to say anything because the image of the burning MiG-29, along with the destroyed Pantsir-S1 in broad daylight, said it all. If we set aside the damage figures, the tens of millions of dollars lost, and the war budgets going up in smoke, the real value of these strikes lies in neutralizing Russia's actual combat capabilities on the ground. Russia, despite its overwhelming numerical superiority in the air, no longer risks sending fighter jets deep into Ukrainian airspace. Military reports indicate Russia has lost up to 438 aircraft, mostly during the early war, when attempting to gain airspace control with close-range bombing runs. That bitter defeat forced the Kremlin to quickly change its doctrine, pulling its fighter jets back behind the front lines and carrying out long-range airstrikes using missiles and especially glide bombs, all launched from the safety of Russian airspace or distant rear areas. This long-range bombing tactic helps protect Russian fighter jets from Ukraine's dense air defense network, but it requires the aircraft to be stationed at forward air bases near the border to optimize their combat radius. This harsh reality will very likely force the Russian military to relocate its remaining squadrons even farther away from the border. Tactically, this forced withdrawal will severely restrict the operational range and significantly reduce the destructive power of the missile and glide bomb airstrike campaign. What shocks observers even more is not just the fate of the fighter jet, but the collapse of its protective shield, the Pantsir-S1 air defense system. In theory, the Pantsir-S1 is considered one of the most important and elite links in Russia's arsenal, specifically designed to counter unmanned aerial vehicles. The system's superior flexibility comes from its high mobility, as it is neatly mounted on a military truck chassis. The strength of the Pantsir-S1 lies in its perfect combination of an air defense missile system and a pair of IAP-2A38 automatic anti-aircraft guns, each with a 30mm caliber. According to assessments from the military news site Army Technology, the target destruction rate of this system is advertised to reach a record level of 70 to 95%, although those figures remain difficult to verify in practice. When in its highest combat readiness state, the Pantsir-S1 carries about 1,500 rounds of various types of shells, including armor-piercing, explosive, and fragmentation rounds, with a firing rate of up to 700 rounds per minute and an effective firing range of 4 kilometers. Not stopping there, the system is also equipped with 1257 E-6 surface-to-air missiles. All these impressive technical specifications demonstrate the absolute versatility of the Pantsir-S1, which is designed to intercept any aerial threat, from cruise missiles to UAVs, thanks to its flexible weapon coordination capability. Yet right in Kalino, this mobile fortress was completely paralyzed. So what caused an air defense symbol to turn into a pile of scrap metal? In previous campaigns, the Ukrainian army often used overwhelming UAV swarm tactics. By launching multiple targets at once, the opponent will overload the Pantsir's processing system, causing it to become confused about where to fire or to run out of ammunition before a suicide UAV can rush in to destroy it. However, the data from Kalino shows a much more frightening scenario. It's possible that the radar of the Pantsir-S1 at the base was removed or suffered a serious technical malfunction, preventing it from detecting the threat. But another more bitter possibility for Russia is that the Pantsir-S1 has already revealed deadly flaws when facing modern drone warfare. Field evidence is gradually proving the second hypothesis. In February, Pravda published a shocking statistic for the year 2025 alone. Ukraine's precise raids have wiped out up to half of Russia's total Panzer air defense artillery and missile systems. The disappearance of half of the strategic arsenal within 12 months is the harshest evidence shattering the myth of the Pantsir-S1's power. The Ukrainian Security Service, SBU, emphasized that the persistent depletion of the Panzer system is not accidental. Rather, it is a strategy to destroy the Panzer system, to pierce and break through the enemy's air defense shield, creating safe corridors to strike deep into the enemy's rear. This allows Ukrainian defense forces to effectively attack military bases, warehouses, airports, and key facilities of the occupying forces. The destruction of 50 units has exposed the truth. A modern Russian close-in defense system has been completely outpaced by the relentless evolution of Ukraine's UAVs. Heavy losses and too many destroyed Panzers have forced them to improvise with hybrid systems that combine different ground-based missile launchers. This is a clear sign that Russia is no longer able to produce replacements fast enough to keep up with the rate of losses. For President Vladimir Putin and the Russian military apparatus, losing a MiG-29 and a Pantsir-S1 system at an airbase is a bitter and humiliating blow, but it is not enough to immediately change the course of the fighting. However, the real tragedy lies in the fact that this strike has exposed the harsh truth about Russia's entire air defense network. It's not just the Pantsir system, but every system currently in their possession is revealing critical weaknesses. Drones are becoming a nightmare that is slipping beyond the control of Russia's defense shield, a problem that cannot simply disappear overnight. And if you need a compelling example of that systemic helplessness, just look at this number, 174. The number 174 is a damning verdict, marking the number of Russian air defense systems destroyed in just the first 5 months of 2026. A report from the United 24 media outlet, published on June 5, shows that this wave of destruction has drained a massive sum of up to $5.4 billion from Russia's defense budget. The crises don't stop at the shredded air defense shields. The loss of the MiG-29 fighter jet in Kalino has also left an operational gap that cannot be filled. It needs to be made clear that the issue is not that Russian industry can't build new aircraft, but that the MiG-29 fighter line has been out of production for a long time. If the Kremlin decides to deploy a new aircraft to replace it in Kalino, they will be caught in a dilemma. Either risk sending much more modern and expensive machines, which are too risky to lose in routine bombing missions. They have to keep stripping parts from the remaining MiG-29s left in the Soviet-era reserves, which are running out. Both options are tactical setbacks for Moscow. They don't want to risk their expensive new-generation fighters just to carry out simple bombing runs or long-range missile launches. Every time a Soviet-era airframe is lost, it further depletes their already limited reserves. While Russia's defenses still seem to be stuck in old operational thinking from before the era of drone warfare exploded, Ukraine's suicide drones are evolving at a dizzying pace. According to information published by United 24 on July 17, Ukraine's UAV network, from FPV drones operating directly on the front lines to long-range suicide drones striking deep behind enemy lines, has surpassed a historic milestone with over 1 million attacks carried out in 2026 alone. With this rapid growth in drone warfare, UAV attacks now account for up to 90% of Ukraine's total firepower strikes. This number will very likely reach 2 million attacks before the end of this year. So in your opinion, which option will Putin choose? And what will Putin do to prevent Ukraine from counterattacking?